Death and Dementia, Mike Wentling from Familiar Surroundings is back. And Mike wanted to talk about some of the ways that people end up paying for the in-home care that he hadn't covered before. Mike, thanks for coming back. What information do you have?
Oh, my pleasure, and thanks for having me. Like you said, we were talking before about the types of services that exist and that are out there for people as they get older. And um, there are a lot of services, and some of them are unknown to people. And after we got done talking, I started thinking, some of the things are actual, sources to pay for this. And unfortunately, medical insurance doesn't cover our type of care. Because we're considered non-medical. And there's a lot of different types of service in my kind of general, the non-medical assistance for seniors. And it's for the vast majority of people, unfortunately, it's out of pocket, and it tends to be an expensive industry. So after we talked before, I got to thinking about, part of our conversation was the cost and that sort of thing. And there are things that people can do. The one that leaps to mind first and foremost is VA benefits for our veterans. So there's several different programs within the VA, the veterans that, and like I said, as long as you're honorably discharged, some of them are designed for veterans who are medically discharged or have a disability discharge of some sort. Some are designed for veterans that served during some sort of conflict, and so there's dates that are involved in figuring out if and you didn't actually have to deploy to a war zone as long as you were on active duty during certain periods of time. The obvious World War I, II, Korea, Vietnam, but some of the smaller conflicts are also included, and a lot of or all of the programs provide some assistance. Some it's directly to the veteran, some it's to the family members of the veteran who are taking care of them. So if you are a veteran and you are in need of some sort of home care similar to what we provide, a call to the VA is, and I have different numbers too. I'd be happy to provide for people if they gave me a call. There's a process to get in it, and it's the government, so nothing's quick. But several of the programs that relate directly to what I do will provide maybe 12 or 16 hours a week, where they pay the entire bill for up to a certain number of hours a week. And for some of my vets, that's perfectly fine. That's enough hours, just to have somebody there when they're bathing, or a few times a week, or to make sure there's food in their fridge, or to help them with exercise programs. Oftentimes those small amounts of hours are plenty enough. And then the other thing that they do, oftentimes it's considered respite. So the family member that is providing most of the care can get out of the house and recharge and refresh, or go run errands, or take care of their own needs while we're there, knowing that their veteran loved one is safe at least and has somebody with them. So the VA is wonderful for a lot of my clients. We have quite a few VA clients, and some of them will then also have hours out of pocket. But at least the VA is providing something for them. And it's a great program. It's very, very helpful for a lot of my veterans. The other way people pay for this type of service is if they had purchased a long-term care policy. Like I said, regular medical insurance doesn't cover our services, but a long-term care policy can, depending on the structure of the policy. Some of those policies mainly cover like a rehab facility or something like that, an inpatient type of situation. But a lot of them provide for my services too. And they're all structured a little bit differently. But some of them will provide up to a certain number of hours per week or per day, regardless of cost. Some of them will provide a certain amount per week or per day. And then it's up to the client to figure out how many hours are covered and that sort of thing, depending on what my hourly rate is, how many hours they can have in a week that'll be covered. And I'm more than happy to help people through that. One of the downsides to long-term care policies is there's usually an elimination period, which functions kind of like a copay, where you do have to come out of pocket for a certain period of time prior to the benefits kicking in. So I've seen 2 weeks, I've seen 30 days, I've seen as much as 90 days, and they're all different depending on the structure of the individual policy that a client has. But that's super helpful. Oftentimes I've had seniors that have purchased one of these policies through work, or if they worked for the government or they worked for a union or something, and they were provided by work and forgot they even had them until we have this conversation, and then they go back through and realize that they do have these benefits. So it's a really good way for people to be able to get care without breaking the bank, so to speak. So that's quite helpful. The other thing that I've seen is people with certain life insurance policies will have living benefits, not just a death benefit, but a living benefit, usually like a whole life policy or a universal life policy. Those policies might be structured in a way that some of the benefits that you've been paying for years, you can actually draw on while you're still alive and needing care or needing services like I provide. And I'm not as familiar with those, but I do know they exist, and I've seen them work pretty well for those people who have that type of a policy. And then, of course, there's a lot of people that just pay out of pocket. We live I live in a pretty upscale area or work, I should say. I don't live in an upscale area. I work in a pretty upscale area of the Bay Area. And so there are a lot of people that can't afford to just pay out of pocket. But that's not the norm. Most people have to have some sort of a strategy or some sort of way of making stretching their ability to have this type of care so that they can stay in their own home and not go somewhere else. And then there's other things that are out there that vary by county. That there might be grants available. There might be county support that can provide. Usually speaking, those types of things will assist with a private caregiver as opposed to going through an agency like mine. But there are options for people, and contacting the county is never a bad thing to see what's available. It may not be the best bet for everybody, or it may not be the answer for everybody, but it's not a bad phone call to make just to see what your individual county might have available to you. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there's people that will leverage their houses. There's a lot of people that have been living in their house for 40, 50, 60 years and have a lot of equity just sitting there. So they'll leverage the house, the home equity line of credit, or a reverse mortgage or something like that if it's really important for them to stay in the house. That's why we named our company Familiar Surroundings, because we truly believe people do better when they remain in their own home. Mm-hmm. So that's something that people can leverage too. And a lot of people they may not have a huge income because they're older, but they're sitting on some value in their home, and that's an option too. And that's usually my least favorite suggestion for people, just because it's a scary thought. You remember back, they used to do exposés on 2020 about lenders going after seniors and bilking them out of their property value and that sort of thing. And it's not like that today. There are some very legitimate effective ways of using a home to provide the type of care that we provide. But so it's not nearly as scary as it was. But for people who remember back when that was a big thing, then that tends to be a little scary for them. So it's my last option usually that I give to people, but it does exist. So
I heard there were a lot of changes. We looked into that when mom and dad really started going downhill. We kind of quickly got to the point that we knew we needed 24-hour care because dad started to wander. And you can't can't leave them unattended at that point.
Right.
I had heard that they had made a lot of positive changes um, in the area of what reverse mortgages.
Absolutely,
And
they
so,
have. Yeah, they're a really good product for a lot of people, and I actually have I have a really good contact who's very reputable, and very transparent in what it provides and that sort of thing. Um, that I'm happy to connect people with if they're interested. But and he'll do consultations without any type of upfront costs or anything like that, and he'll tell people. I've seen him do it. You know, he'll say, yeah, that here is a product that could work for you, but and you are a good candidate or you are not a good candidate, and here's the reasons why. Which I think is, you know, he's not just trying to sell a product. He's actually kind of in the same mindset that you and I have, where we're trying to help people. And yeah, we have to feed our own families, but you know, it's more about helping people than it is about making a buck. So he's a really good resource. Uh, he actually has provided the reverse mortgages for people who don't need immediate assistance or home care. I mean, it's not just for that reason. It can be a good product for a lot of different reasons. And I'm happy to connect people with him if they have any interest.
perfect. Do you work with some of the insurance companies? I know with us, the initial part of getting the insurance claim approved, I had to deal with because I had power of attorney and all that. But then afterward, the home that mom and dad are in, the paperwork doesn't have to come through me every month. The home actually works directly, and they send the paperwork to the long-term insurance. And so I have to manage it and monitor it, but at least I'm not doing all that. Do you work with those companies at all, or?
We are set up to do that. Generally speaking, what is required is that we provide care notes about what we do on a daily basis when we're in the home. I'm not sure if we talked about it previously. Usually, if somebody's using a long-term care insurance policy, there has to be a certain number of activities of daily living that they need assistance with.
Yeah.
So we are set up to provide with any insurance company. We will provide those care notes of what we've done in the home that day, every day, or we don't submit them every day, but we keep notes every day of what we're doing while we're in the home to make sure that people are receiving the care that the insurance is paying for. So that's one way that we work directly with them. The other way is if the client completes what's usually called a designation of benefits or an assignment of benefits, that allows us to take the client out of the billing process where all of the paperwork. I think it sounds like what you're describing. The majority of the administrative things are handled directly between us and the insurance company. The client will still get their documentation showing, you know, what we billed and what was paid and all of that sort of thing. But it takes the mundane day-to-day hassle out of it for the client, and we can take over a lot of that. The initial steps have to be done by the client. That assignment of benefits document has to be submitted, and we're not allowed to do that for you. But once that's taken care of, then yes, a lot of the communication goes directly between us and the insurance company.
That, yeah, hugely helpful because yeah, the setup was a pain, and I had to set it up for dad first. His kicked in a while back. Mom's, I'm actually in that elimination period right now that you talked about. It's 90 days. It starts next month. And we had to apply several times because what I thought was going to be one more assisted daily living task wasn't. And so it got denied. But the company was actually helpful. But it's nice for me now because, like I said, all I really do is manage it. I look at the paperwork every month when it comes in. And if I notice something that's not right, then I make a few phone calls. But for the most part, it's between the two companies.
Yeah, you should always, like you said, you should always monitor the documentation that's going back and forth. But for the most part, yeah, a lot of the headache of the administrative processes can be taken off your plate for sure.
So perfect. If are a lot of these things on your website, or at least if not, can they anyone email you if they have questions about
Oh,
anything?
absolutely. A lot of the options are on our website. Not everything is explicitly detailed and, you know, exactly how things work. Otherwise our website would be, you know, way too large. But absolutely, people can call me, email me. I'm happy to speak with anybody about any of these things. And I mean, I don't know everything, but I know more than most when it comes to more than most people who are not in this industry, I should say. Um, I'm happy to direct people, provide as much information as I possibly can. And if I'm not in a position where I know the answer, I'll find it or direct them to somebody who does have the answer. And I'm happy to do that. And there's no cost or anything for that. It's something I do. I'm happy to be a resource for people.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mike. And as people start getting into this with the parents, it's so nice to have somebody who's a professional that's been dealing with this for years to actually talk to and help you through the process, because it's a horrible process. But thank you very much, Bud. If you have anything else, let me know and we'll do another video.
Awesome. Thanks very much for having me.
All right, take care.